Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, the government and legal correspondent, and it is spring election time coming up, and we're here on Ash Wednesday to interview a frequent guest, Mayor of Hudson, Rich O'Connor. Rich, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here, Jamie.
So anyway, we are here on a day that had biggest snowstorm of the year.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you made it, and I'm also glad that our streets are nicely plowed here in Hudson. So.
Our crews did a great job.
Yep.
Always do.
So, it is coming up on an election season, and April 1, there is a contested race here for mayor. This will be your fourth term that you're running for. You've been mayor 9 years. Let's just reacquaint for those folks who might not have watched before, and you give kind of an annual update, but this is a little different because now, we're looking back over prior terms, but also if you're reelected, then it's going to be 3 more years. So
right.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background prior to serving as mayor.
I was born and raised on the east side of St. Paul and graduated Johnson High School. I graduated the University of Notre Dame. My wife and I moved our family here to Hudson in 1999. Our oldest was in college at the time. Our 2 younger children were started EP Rock in the fall of '99 and graduated Hudson High School. So I participated in a number of things, volunteer work. I was on the Hudson Hospital Foundation Board for 12 years, chaired that for, many of those years. Worked with the Hudson Hockey Association, and I was on that board for, I believe, 6 years, and vice president and that, and sat on the library board for 12 years, I think, and I'm still on that board. I chaired that for quite a bit of that time. I was appointed by Mayor Burchell back in, I believe, 2012. So I've been involved in a lot of volunteer things, St. Pat's board as well. As far as the experience is concerned, I spent 12 years pretty much right out of school. I spent 12 years in the Minnesota legislature. I was elected in 1980, and I served until 1992. After that, I was on the business side. I was with City Street, which was a Citigroup company, for 10 years. And I was a regional manager in charge of up to 26 direct reports to me, and then I became a regional vice president. After I left there, I was with M&I Bank. I was a regional vice president for them for a few years, and then I went out and started my own business. So with respect to my qualifications, I have both business background as well as elected official background, and had my own business. So.
Well, unlike our prior 2 mayors who served on the city council before they became mayor, you did not. And so how did that all happen? It's been 9 years, so I've forgotten a little bit. We had Mayor Burchell, and he had elected not to run for re-election. Right. So rather than support a sitting council person, you ran. So
yes.
How did that go about?
Well, I had been approached by a number of people and thought that they'd seen the work that I'd done with the Hospital Foundation Board as well as the Library Board. Because of the Library Board in particular experience, I had pretty close idea of what was going on with the city. We'd have to go into the city council, make reports and things like that at various times. So, but not only that, my experience both with the Minnesota legislature as well as business experience, I think lent itself to being pretty well qualified to run for mayor at the time, even not having been on the city council prior to that.
Okay, well, now that you've been in the job for 9 years, what do you see are the most important responsibilities of mayor? I mean, we have a job description,
right,
and it's probably a definition in the statutes as well as when you're a city mayor, but yes. It's one thing to have what the job description says, but then in actuality, what you spend your time doing, what do you see as your most important responsibilities? Okay,
so you are correct. The mayor is established statutorily by the Wisconsin legislature. And the mayor is the CEO. Actually says that in the statute. The mayor is the CEO of the city, chief executive officer. So Essentially, all department heads and things would report to the mayor. I don't operate that way. We have a city administrator, and the department heads report directly to the city administrator. The city administrator reports to me. But so, where do I spend most of my time? It's first of all, the mayor is the face of the city, the leader of the city, and the mayor provides a vision for the city and a direction for the city. I spend a lot of my time working with our community development director, Mike Johnson, who, when we talk about growth of the city, and there are a lot of projects that have happened since I've been mayor, even before Mike came in, I sat with Denny Darnold frequently. I would have weekly meetings, and we would talk about the growth of the city. We wanted it planned, we wanted it measured, we still do. So that takes a lot of time. I'm not as involved in the day-to-day on that as the community development director is. We've got great staff, top to bottom, in every department, and that's what they do. He just kind of fills me in on what's going on, and we start to talk about, is this the direction that we want the city to go? That's a big part of it. But I also spend a lot of time going out and visiting with people, visiting with different organizations, talking to people. I love going into the schools and talking to the kids. That's the most fun part of the job, is talking to being invited into the classrooms and telling the kids what we do and how we do it. And oftentimes they have field trips and come through my office. But that's pretty much how I spend my day. Of course, I talk to the city administrator. We have weekly meetings, and he fills me in on everything that's going on with each one of the departments. And if I need to have conversations with the department heads to try to get a better idea what's going on directly from them, I will contact them, and they're more than happy to fill me in.
Now, the mayor, under the statute, can have a day job, so to speak.
Yes.
And so, what do you do? How do you split your time?
I was told by Mayor Burchell that when you're elected mayor, you need about 20 hours a week is what it's going to take. And so I had my own business, and I was spending 40 hours a week, probably more, on my business, and then another 20 working on city business. The one thing I learned early on is the more you know, the more difficult the job becomes. And so that just completely flipped within probably 6 months, where I was doing 40 hours a week on city business and 20 hours a week in my own business. It was fortunate I was toward the end of my career anyway.
All right, so we can do a little retrospective analysis. Now, having been in there 9 years, we're not going to run through all 9 years, but what would be your top 2, 3, 4, however, as far as things that you've addressed that you feel has left the city in good shape?
Yeah. So we've talked about this in the past. I believe that the number one priority for the mayor and for the city council should be the safety of the residents of our city. And I have focused on that, and obviously I can't take credit for a lot of the things that have happened. But we have added police officers. I think last time we talked about the proposal coming from Chief Willems for lights and additional lights downtown to light some of the darker places where we might have had some problems, as well as cameras downtown, additional cameras, so that we can, if we do have any type of transgressions, we might be able to follow them on camera. Those have since been installed. So that's a good thing. We've added, since I've been in office, we've added, I believe, 7 different officers now, including a dedicated drug detective, community service officer, 4 patrol officers, reinstated a lieutenant position. So public safety is important. Let's turn it into the fire department. Again, public safety. The fire department moved up the hill from downtown, which was an important move for response times, to be able to get the fire trucks to various locations quicker than having to get our volunteers coming into downtown and then trying to wend their way through the streets of downtown with the big trucks. That has worked out very well and has been to the advantage of everybody here in the city by having that truck, or I'm sorry, the fire station up on the hill. Also freed up space downtown for parking. We may talk about that later, I'm not sure.
Okay.
EMS, of course, public safety again, right? And that was a big challenge. When I first came in office, that consumed 3 years worth of transition, essentially. And we have a great EMS service, and that's expanded. We had two, the agreement is we would have 2 dedicated ambulances. We have since gotten a 3rd ambulance. The Lakeview had built the facility up next to the hospital to be able to accommodate all of this. They've fulfilled their part of the agreement, 100%, even then some, by adding an additional vehicle up there. But here's the important part, is that we reduced response times by more than half. We went from over 9 minutes to get an ambulance to a site down to about 4.5 minutes.
Okay.
And again, that saves lives. So public safety.
Not too many I told you so is coming back on this one.
No.
Okay.
No.
So you mentioned police, fire, EMS. That pretty much covers public safety. What other areas?
Library, we had talked about library. It's been an ongoing issue. When the library moved into that building downtown, I think it was in 2010, they were supposed to be there in just their dedicated space that they have right now for 5 years. The police department was supposed to move out to a new site, yet to be disclosed, I don't want to say disclosed because we didn't know, but identified site at that time. They were supposed to move out in like 5 years, and the library was going to take over the whole building. That didn't happen until just recently. We have acquired a new building for the police, and up at the corner of Hanley and Hagen, the old Phillips Plastics building. And so I believe in September, October, the whole police force will be moving into that building, and then the library will be taking over the rest of the building. That's a big discussion right now, trying to figure out what type of renovation is going to be necessary and how much space we're going to be utilizing. There is a proposal that has passed the library board so far and will be brought to the city council soon, that would be talking about spending about $17 million for a complete renovation, as well as, in addition to the building, that would kind of fill in the space in that circle on the north end, just as the entrance to the library and the police station right there. That would be filled in with additional space for the library, and get the total square footage up to about 40,000 square feet from, I think that's it, or 37,000 from what I think currently is 19,000 square feet. So
almost doubling then.
Yeah, so that's happened. We have transportation for our senior citizens, disabled, and other people in need. Last time we talked, in the last election, cycle, I had told you that was something that I was focused on and wanted to get done. I'd made promises to people in the city that were in need of such service, that we were going to be working on that. And we implemented that a year ago, and it has been a success. We've had 2 different providers right now. First one really didn't have the capability for disabilities. The one that we're using right now does, because we bought the vans, we own them. But we hear great things about the service, so much so that people would like to see it expanded into the surrounding areas. I don't know that that's going to happen yet, because it's a taxpayer-funded venture right now, just funded exclusively by the Hudson taxpayers, as well as some grant money that we get. But that's an important piece, and I know that there are other council members that had stressed this as well. So again, kudos to our staff for making that a reality.
Okay, I think we got later a whole nother topic about infrastructure, but why a 4th term? I recall interviewing you 3 years ago. You thought that was going to be your last time, and
you had to bring that up, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, but I mean, I have to admit, I thought the same thing after I had served 2 terms. I'll go one more term, and that'll be it. And then always something comes up that pulls you back. And so that's where I'm kind of curious. What's your motivation for a 4th term?
Well, there are a few things. First of all, I really believe I'm qualified for this. We've done some amazing things, I believe, in the city, the council, all of our staff. We've done some amazing things, but we still have some challenges ahead. And frankly, I believe that with the experience, the leadership, especially the experience that I've had as mayor, once again lends itself to being able to meet some of these challenges head on. And challenges that, the number one challenge, in my opinion, and I know that we have council members that agree with this, again, has to do with infrastructure, and that's our 11th Street or our Hagen Street Bridge, interchangeable 11th and Hagen Street. That's
right.
kind of where they merge right there.
Yeah.
And it's in a state of disrepair, and we need to fix this. And what we find is that there's so much pressure on that bridge. Anytime that there's a band-aid approach to fixing the bridge at Carmichael, at the exit 2 interchange, the detour is always, it can only go one way. We only have two bridges, and it goes down to the 11th Street Bridge. I don't know if you've ever sat on that bridge waiting for a stoplight to change. It's not a comfortable feeling. And that bridge was not intended, was not made, was not designed to handle 100 cars sitting on that bridge waiting for a streetlight to turn. The state acknowledges that it's a problem, but we have not been able to convince them to spend any money to try to fix it. They told us that we could fix it ourselves, be our guest, is what they said. And of course, it's a bridge over an interstate, so it is owned by the state. We need this fixed. This is something that we're talking to the DOT about. It's at the top of my list, and I really think that, again, I think my experience in leadership lends itself to making something happen to resolve this situation. And of course, that leads us to the conversation about the Carmichael Bridge, right? Carmichael Street, because every single piece of development that we have had in this city for, I don't know, certainly predating my being in office, has had an impact on Carmichael. When you think about it, the dog track when it went in impacted Carmichael. The dog track after it was redeveloped, or in the process of currently of being redeveloped, again, having a huge impact on Carmichael. The Lee property directly across the street from there, the property that was developed with housing, again, because some of that is high density, a huge impact on Carmichael and the bridge. You come across the bridge, and then you've got Carmichael Ridge, which is the old golf course. All of that puts pressure on Carmichael. Hudson Physicians, when they went in, puts more pressure on Carmichael, and they're proposing another building that will, again, put more pressure there. And then as we develop going north on Carmichael, the east side of Carmichael is still not annexed into the city once you get beyond Hudson Physicians, but it will be because it's part of our comprehensive plan. As those parcels of property become developed all the way up to Vine Street, again, it's going to be more pressure on Carmichael, which puts pressure on that bridge, and it becomes a real problem. And again, it's one that the DOT acknowledges, but has said that they don't intend to try to remedy until the year sometime between 2040 and 2050. Either way, if one of our bridges has to shut down for any type of repair, it puts pressure on the other bridge, as that bridge then becomes the detour. And neither one of those bridges were designed or intended to handle that type of traffic. Maybe we brought this up before. I think an interesting note is that on an average daily basis, there is more traffic between Woodbury and Eau Claire coming through here, coming through the city of Hudson, than there is traffic between Madison and Milwaukee on an average daily basis.
Wow. The
traffic that is utilizing our ramps and our bridge here, our interchange at exit 2, is either the highest density usage or the second highest between here and Milwaukee.
Okay.
I mean, who would have thought?
Right.
A little town, 15,000 people, that we would have that type of traffic and on a bridge like that, or an interchange like that. But that's a reality, and we need to do something about that. So again, I'm being a little verbose here.
So your two bridges, and what else do you see as challenges for the next 3 years?
Library is the next one. Okay, we talked a little bit about that. It's a $17 million project that's being proposed by the Library Board and the Library Foundation Board. And so they are just kind of working with consultants right now to determine how they're going to approach this, but there will be a major fundraising effort to raise the funds necessary to do the redevelopment of, or renovation of, and perhaps extension of that library building.
Now, we haven't really had a huge capital fundraising for the library. The battles in the past have been more about the operating budget.
Operating costs, yes.
Yeah, and sharing of those costs among municipalities and so forth.
Right.
So how is this fundraising effort different?
Well, that's a great question. So since we talked last, our partners that made up the joint library, right? They have since exited. They have withdrawn their partnership from the library, which has put the sole funding onus on the city of Hudson, on our taxpayers, and of course the reimbursements that come through circulation costs from the county. But we've more than doubled what we used to pay. Our taxpayers have.
Okay.
And some of that was evident in the tax bill that we got this time around. So that's a big change, but at the same time, it's a more consistent funding vehicle, right? Mm-hmm. Because before, it was really who has extra money at the end of the day, all of our partners were, and the partners were St. Joe, North Hudson, and Town of Hudson. And everybody had tight budgets, and it was how much can you afford to increase in library funding? Can you even afford to do a cost of living adjustment for the library? And many times the library went without any type of increase from anybody except for the city. So this provides more stability. It's a better solution for everybody. And so funding now is more stable. But
will increasing the size of the library then have to increase the operating? I mean, it's a little bit of a two-edged sword, right?
Yeah. Good insight. Yes, absolutely. That's what the board was actually struggling with, and I'm sure the council is going to be asking these questions when Shelley, the director of the library, Shelley Tugas, comes in and talk to us. But yeah, can you add that much space, square footage, and even especially with an addition added, without increasing your operating expenses? How many full-time employee FTEs, right, are represented by the additional square footage? And Shelley believes, she's very confident that we can do this with the staff that we have right now. Okay. And she's well aware that the council is watching to see if this is going to be added operating expense that's going to have to go to the city. So anyway, those are questions that the council will be dealing with soon.
All right. As you know, this election cycle, the school district's looking to the voters to see if they'll approve an increase in revenue, because like school districts, municipalities also have caps on your revenue.
Right.
And has there been any discussion, any thought that that's something that might be needed for Hudson? For any type of referendum? Yeah.
That clearly is something, excuse me, I realized I was that far from it. It's something that has not truly been talked about yet, because we believe, I think I can speak for the Hudson Foundation as well, that they believe that they can raise this money, that we do have the wherewithal in our city to be able to raise the money necessary to accomplish the goals that Shelley has set out in the board and the foundation.
Well, and that's just the library. I was just thinking like overall the city, because I know that you're always going to have folks that want lower taxes,
right.
And I think one of the hallmarks that since you've been mayor is that there has been kind of a holding on the line on the budget and trying not to expand, whether it's debt or operating costs and so forth. But certain things require money. It's just the way it is, and so that's why is there you'll try to increase your tax base. We can talk about residential and commercial.
Right.
We've seen in the time that you and I have been here in the city, filling 3 business parks. So is there a plan for a 4th business park? And I've heard talk about the fact that there's no new land available to build houses on now that Bella Rose is filled.
Right. That was a lot of questions.
Yeah. So you want to take them, separate out commercial and.
So let's start with: is it possible for a referendum? I would say yeah, absolutely. We do not have that. Let's put this into perspective. Our budget is about $12 million, our operating budget for the city.
Okay.
And the cost of, if we were to do the bridge at 11th Street, the cost there last time we even visited this issue with respect to cost was about $12 million, maybe $13 million. More than our budget. I mean, clearly we don't have the money to do that. We can borrow for that, and we're in great shape as far as our borrowing capacity. I think you know that. We're probably at maybe 10% of our capacity. So we could do that, and the council could vote to do that, or we could go to a referendum and ask the people in the city if they think that repairing that bridge or reconstructing that bridge is a priority. It's something that we
Typically
could
paying off with bonds over 20 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's something that we could do. There are sometimes I think we need to go to referendum for certain issues. Other times we don't, right? And I wouldn't rule out having to go to referendum for something in particular, and maybe the 94 bridge, right? The Carmichael Bridge, the interchange. Because the state has told us that no matter what happens, if they were to come in and do that bridge again, the last time a cost analysis was done on that, which was probably 2016, it was $30 million. And that's 2016, $30 million.
Right.
Today, that's,
Yeah.
50.
That's before all this hyperinflation, if you will, the last 3 years. So.
And they told us that we were going to be on the hook for half of that, no matter what. Okay. So at that point, yeah, we would probably have to go to referendum for that. Well, I think we'd probably want to make sure it's what the residents here want. So that's one part of your
But again,
question.
Carmichael's kind of on the back burner.
Yeah.
Hagan Street would be more the front burner.
That to me, that's the number one priority on the bridges. And what were the other questions? There was something.
Well, then just another way, if you don't go to referendum, another way of increasing your revenue is to increase your tax base. And
Right.
that could be
Oh,
by having more
development.
houses and commercial development. Right.
So we are always receptive to developers coming in with ideas. Like I said, we know that the east side of Carmichael is going to be developed at some point. It's just a question of when the people that own those properties have been approached with a figure sufficient for them to want to sell their property. And maybe they want some say in what's going to happen just for legacy purposes, right? So we know that. We're just kind of waiting on that. And we've been, I don't know that we've actually turned anybody down since I've been in office for annexation. It's not like we do it every day. We probably 3-4 properties, major properties since I've been in office. We are very receptive to development. Let's talk about the school district property. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, UU. That's another opportunity for annexation. Because
Absolutely.
I've asked this question in the nearly 20 years I've been doing these interviews. So you're not the only mayor to be asked about annexation, because Mayor Burchell was always one saying we're running out of land.
We are out of land. There's no doubt about it. We're landlocked except for east and south. Yeah, can't go west. That's the river. We can't go north.
Yep.
So I know that the town isn't all that excited about the only option, being going east.
Right.
But
the exception with the UU, it is school land, so it's not on the tax rolls for town of Hudson. They're not losing any tax base in that. So, and it's an opportunity to get houses in there that might be something could be affordable by people who could come with kids.
Right. That's a good. That is a good point about the tax rolls. But so we know, and I think we can talk about this because it's been mentioned at the school district before in some of their meetings, school board meetings. We have never talked about this at the council meetings yet, but I think the council members are aware of this, that Derrick Construction is talking about coming in. So let's preface this with annexation generally needs to involve contiguity. The property that's requesting to be annexed usually has to be contiguous to, adjacent to, a property that's already in the city, right? So we know that UU, for example, the school district property, is not contiguous to anything in the city. And we have to provide contiguity in order to discuss annexation, okay? In general, I know we could talk about, doing some other things to try to annex them. So Derrick Construction has come up with a creative idea to be able to get to that property at UU, and that is by acquiring properties coming from the freeway where we do have contiguity just on the south side of the freeway, and using that contiguity to go north, directly north, to get to the properties, the school district property on UU. I think there's 4 or 5 properties involved there. So it's either a direct purchase of those properties or an agreement to get the property owners to want to be or request to be annexed by the city, and that would get contiguity all the way up from the freeway up to Vine Street or UU to get to the UU property that's owned by the school district. All right, so it's my understanding that there is that there's a problem with at least one of the property owners. Okay, there are a couple different ways to do an annexation here, but through contiguity. One is by majority, annexation by majority consent, and one is annexation by unanimous consent. Unanimous consent is that every one of those property owners is going to agree to be annexed. All right. Majority is that you would impose the will of the majority of those property owners that want to be annexed upon the owner of the property or owners of properties that do not want to be annexed. Right. The city's position at this point is that we do not do annexation by majority consent. Okay, that's a take, in my opinion, that's a taking of somebody's property to force them to be annexed, and then force them, once they're annexed, they have to be hooked up to our infrastructure, which means that they have to be hooked up to our sewer, our water, and that could be additional costs that they're going to incur, and then of course they're going to be taxed by the city. So that's where the town of Hudson might weigh in, because they would be losing properties that are on their tax rolls right now. Mm-hmm. Okay, they would be converted over to the city once they've been annexed. We are hoping, we would love to see this project. Well, when I say we, okay, I can't speak for the full council. But it's a way for us to continue development, and it makes sense because that property likely would be used for housing. I think that's what Derek is talking about. I'm sure there could be some business, some light industrial, commercial industrial in there as well. But it's a great way for continued growth of Hudson moving eastward.
Right. Well, there's already been, residential development south of the interstate, Red Cedar Canyon and so forth. And there's a whole bunch of vacant land just north of the interstate going out to exit 4 that could be, again, potential expansion. So I think that's kind of it'll take its course, and that's something that will be addressed in the next year or so.
Right. And another reason why I am seeking another term, I would like to see some of this come through.
Right. Well, I see our time, we're way over at this point, but I wanted to, bring up.
How did that happen? I have so much fun here talking.
Right. Talk about the, the parking, because some of these questions are exact same questions we've used in previous elections.
Right.
And for mayor, and for example, solving the downtown parking problem. Do you see, have anyone complained since the new system has been installed? How is the parking issue, at least from the perception of complaints?
Right. So the number of complaints has gone down significantly. I truly have not heard a complaint about parking in quite a while, ever since that we demolished the old fire station and put surface lot parking in there, and that's like the only, well, I shouldn't say only, but it's free parking back there.
Yeah, for up to 4 hours you can park there.
Right, and we added like 50 spaces there. But the other thing is that with the new system, we metered 300 parking spaces that had not been metered before. It's, a double-edged sword, right? But the biggest problem with that was that people were coming there and parking there all day. We had no turnover. Mm-hmm. So by limiting the amount of time that they can be there and having meters there for those 300 spots, we now have turnover, which means that people have access to parking a lot more readily than they used to. And so for those two things, for those two reasons, I believe that our parking problem has been solved.
Okay. You've talked in prior interviews about lakefront. I think that that's been developed, and again, hearing good word on that, or is there any complaints, or is there more coming?
There is, first of all, I think it's been very well received. People are ecstatic that the boat launch has been raised, and so during the flood last year, our boat launch was closed for maybe 3 or 4 days, where years past, we had 3 years in a row where our boat launch was closed more than half the season just because of light flooding. We hadn't even been at no wake yet out on the river.
Right.
And our launch was closed. So this has been great. It's been very well received. The boardwalk, same thing, very well received. People love making that an extension of their walk through the park, their walk up and down the dike. People are utilizing that for fishing and just their daily stroll.
You had some complaints about the flood poles, but how would that work out?
The spud poles, yeah. They were, and even when I saw them going, I thought, oh man, these are a lot bigger than I thought they were going to be. Worked out great. Worked out great. We had, obviously, people, it was something new and they thought it was going to obstruct their vision of the river. But when we had the flood, I think people saw that those docks were right up there.
And basically the boardwalk rises.
Rises and falls.
With the waters. And we had major flooding right into 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. But, you know, the boardwalk was still there on those spud poles and had about a foot or two to go yet. You know, so no, it did a great job, and it's been very well received. Looking forward to what people have to say this summer, when hopefully we'll have a full summer of activity down there without our park being flooded.
Okay. Now, Rich, like you said, we've been talking for over 35 minutes. We could probably talk another 35. But can people go someplace to get more information about you, whether they can see testimonials of voters, residents, or can see what your vision is for the next 3 years?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, I'm on Facebook. We have an Instagram account as well, so we push things out there. But Facebook is Rich O'Connor, Hudson Mayor. So
Okay.
just stop in there and take a look at that. One last thing, if I
Yes.
may.
Yep.
We have a splash pad coming.
Okay.
All right, so Mike Mraz, our head of Parks and Public Works, just announced at the council meeting the other night that construction will start at White Camp Park.
Okay.
Construction will start on that, and he said that we hope to have it open by early August.
Wow.
And so we'll have at least a month of people being able to enjoy the splash pad. I also want to put a plug in for the Golden Rule. That's something I'm very proud of. I think
Okay.
that this initiative has had a great impact in the city. I think people have responded very well. The school district is in support of it, and it's being taught in the schools. Our faith community has also embraced it. And
Our annual event.
our booyah, exactly. And I appreciate your help and support in that. We got good pictures of you stirring the pot,
Yeah,
if
right.
you will.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's great to have a community event where everybody is welcome. And it's a politics-free zone, essentially. And
Right.
we got families, you got singles, you got people coming from other areas, coming from across the border that want to be part of a booyah. And yeah, so I'm very proud of that as well, and the people that have helped make that a reality.
So is it going to be the same weekend again this year?
Yeah, first Saturday of October.
All right. Well, we're a little over 6 months out. We're almost 1 month out from the election. It's March 5th today. And but April 1st, folks, get out there and vote. There's lots of things on the ballot. Judicial races, mayor races, school board, so forth. So,
Referendum, yeah.
Yep. So please get out and vote. Rich, I want to thank you for coming on the show again.
Jamie, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure being here with you.
And I want to thank our viewers for watching another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson. Keep watching.